So here's the next question that we had, and it's regarding tenure. And we spoke about the need for teachers, and we spoke about the need for qualified individuals. So the State Education Department now is proposing to eliminate current tenure regulations for the bilingual teachers and teaching assistants. And they state that an unintended consequence of the revision is that districts will hire new teachers and layoffs will occur due to fiscal constraints, and districts now will be required to lay off the junior bilingual staff members, creating problems. So if this proposal is approved, would you see this as the end of tenure as we know it, or is this an isolated situation, would you think, related to the issues that we're having finding qualified individuals? And I guess, Stephanie, you are next in line because Dr. Bersani left.
I can obviously see where this is a concern. You know, part of what we see, the majority of the candidates that we see who have the bilingual extension also have an ESL certificate. And part of my concern is to pull bilingual out of the ESL group. What I'm concerned in looking at the quality of the program that we're going to be offering is that bilingual education is something that may not be an every year offering for us, depending on if we have the enrollment, depending on if the kids continue, and we're looking at having, with this regulation, perhaps a yo-yo effect, you know, on our hiring, that we might need staff one year and not the next. So where I can definitely understand the intention behind that, when we look at the idea of bilingual TAs or bilingual teachers in their own area, I don't know, with this being so new to us and this being something that we're bringing in, that really is going to be beneficial, you know, moving forward. And we'll have to, only time will tell.
Thank you. Regent Tillis?
I don't think this is going to affect tenure as we know it. I don't think that this will affect tenure as we know it. That was certainly not the intent here. It will create some problems. It will create some problems for districts, and especially it does shake up the last in, first out questions on school contract policies. But in terms of tenure, I don't see it as being any more than an anomaly here.
Thank you. Senator Flanagan.
Yeah, I'm getting a kick out of this now. I noticed that the camera that's up here, the tripod is actually camouflaged, so there must be, you know, some meaning to that. But we started off with Part 154, then we went to Common Core, now we're on tenure. Triborough has to be next in terms of what we're going to discuss.
No, so, we're going to leave that out.
All right. The memo I referenced to you from State Ed, I also have an attachment, tenure and seniority protection for bilingual and English to speakers of other language teachers and teaching assistants. In regard to tenure, I believe in tenure, I support tenure, and I have been an outspoken advocate for it for a variety of reasons, but that's a whole separate subject. At the same time, I'm going to give a perfect example. You're going to have a couple of different things. You're going to have regulations, and John spoke to regulations, and there is a massive distinction between regulations and a statute. What the department may issue in terms of an edict or a regulation is potentially vastly different from what would be enacted by the legislature. But lest anyone be fooled, if there are any opportunities or any chance at movement in terms of regulations, I guarantee you without hesitation that AFT, UFT, NYSET, retirees, every supervisory, every administrative, all the superintendents will be in there. If they're not doing it overtly, it'll be behind the scenes. There will be a massive, massive effort to make sure that either nothing happens or something happens that it is so nominal that no one will really even see the change. Now, the reference was made to LIFO, and I am living proof of LIFO legislation. Several years ago, we had advanced in the Senate a piece of legislation at the request of the City of New York regarding LIFO, just for the City of New York. And I want to be clear, we advocated this. I advanced the legislation under my name, full well knowing what that meant. And just so everyone understands, the bill said the following: seniority cannot be the only consideration. You could have a contract negotiation, 95% could be seniority and 5% something else. It just said you can't have it only be seniority. That's really all it said. If you came to an agreement at the local level, in this case in the city of New York, fine. Okay, so I got annihilated, absolutely annihilated for advancing that legislation. The mayor who wanted it walked away. SED walked away. The governor offered some tidbit and said, oh, he was going to do something to try and help. Every major labor union in the state of New York castigated me, my colleagues, and you should have seen the vehemence that came out as a result of that. In this area, I think about, this is the first time I've heard in the last 3 or 4 years the concept of a teacher shortage. I keep hearing more and more about people losing their jobs and looking to get back into regular employment. So this is, I don't know if it's unique or an anomaly, but that's something that we're going to have to grapple with. So my answer is longer than Regent Tillis's, but I would be really shocked if there were legislative or regulatory activity that would make a significant change.
And thank you, Senator Flanagan. Next question pertains to special education, and if you can help us with this and shed some light on it, does the proposed regulations address ELL students with disabilities, and will it be then possible and easier to discontinue the ELL services for students who are identified as having a disability? So I guess Regent Tillis, were you next then? I know that could be a tough question because it's buried in the regulations, but if you have any understanding that you could share with us.
I can't answer the question. I will only say one thing, and that is that both ELL and special ed kids still have to take tests that we all know that they're going to fail, and that has to be changed. That's a US DOE problem, and for the first time, the regents this year, after 6 years of my trying, the regents have asked for a waiver of that US DOE requirement, and I'm hoping that we will get some relief there, because it's absurd. If that's the only, it doesn't really relate to the question, but it's close.
Thank you. Senator Flanagan?
You know, this is one I'm going to grapple with because I'm not sure I have the requisite knowledge in this area. I look at this in a very narrow way. What do I want for my own child? Regent Tillis and I have talked about our own families, and he has a child who's been involved in special ed for years. So whether it's ELL or now I learned ENL, because I just asked secretly what that means. English as a new language, so proves you can learn something every day. I want to make sure that we are fulfilling our obligation as a state, and to the extent that we have to abide by what the federal government dictates to us to do, then we should do that. I don't want to see someone lose whatever services they're entitled to as a result of some bifurcation or obfuscation in terms of what that mission may be. And I couldn't agree more with Regent Tillis. This is to digress, but only momentarily. A lot of the things that we're talking about are an outgrowth of things that are happening at the federal level. And we are gratified as individuals and collectively to be here and to speak with you. But let's not overlook the role that the federal government plays. And I use him, and I mean this with a measure of humor and respect. Senator Schumer is arguably the third most powerful person in the United States Senate. He has an opinion on everything. He has a press conference every Sunday. And yet, he and our delegation, with the exception of Congressman Israel and Congressman King, really have said nothing on these subjects. Those federal regulations that Regent Tillis spoke to directly, those are things that should have been changed a long time ago. There should be no action by the state of New York. That should have been done already. Our federal colleagues should have gone to the U.S. Department of Education and told them that these regulations are stupid and they're not helpful to students. So there's a lot of things that need to be done at the federal level. We need to have more of a collective interaction with our federal colleagues, but there are things that they could do pretty much overnight that would ameliorate some of the concerns that are being raised.
Thank you, Senator Flanagan. Ms. McIntosh.
Looking at the idea of really educating the whole child, this is the piece of the new regulation that really, to me, is the most intriguing. Because there are so many times that we have conversations, whether it's special education or ESL, that is a child's issue. And honestly speaking, we need to look at the whole child. And with the way the regulations read now, and the mandates and the time that kids have to receive for ESL, many times we have no choice but to make a decision as to the fact that they cannot receive some of the special education students, some of the special education services these kids so dearly need because of the sheer number of minutes that they have to receive in ESL. And one of the things looking at this, really looking at a team approach to these kids who have IEPs and also happen to be English as a new language learners or whatever you want to call them, when we look at this and we really look at the whole child, depending on what happens next week and what updates we get, because I believe October 20th we're supposed to be getting additional guidance on this, but it really will give us the opportunity to develop that individual program where we meet the needs of a child and we don't just keep them in a program that they happen to be screened on in the first 5 days they came to us. And they happen to have taken a test that they were not proficient on, which lo and behold could be because of an English language issue, a special education issue, or both. But because they took that screening test within their first couple of days of arriving in our country, and that is really something that I'm excited about with the new regulation, because I feel like we're going to be able to really customize a program where we provide kids with the supports that they need and that really will help them to succeed individually, as opposed to a 360-minute mandate that they must receive. So we'll see how this rolls out, but it really will give us a chance to work as a team and provide our kids with the resources. they most
Just
need.
be careful, because I agree with you. I hope that this works, but the special ed bar, excuse the attorneys in the back, is very, very strong, and the ELL bar is not so
It's
strong.
not strong.
And if you don't do exactly what the Federal Special Ed Act calls for, the Education for the Handicapped Act, there will be lawsuits, and there's no question about it. And I believe that they have to get their special ed, and I don't know which one come first, but if the day has to be 9 hours, they still have to get both bilingual and special ed, or ENL and special ed.
And that's part of when we look at, and really determining, I think having that team approach too will help us determine what they really need. Because based on a screening test, it's decided that they really need those ENL services. But for example, we have a student who came into us and they're a nonverbal autistic kid. And we thought that they were a non-speaker. So they came in, nonverbal autistic student, took the lab bar, qualified for ESL. Now that child is identified as an ESL student. Lo and behold, they didn't have medical documentation when they came into us, but over the process of a year now, we've determined this student is a nonverbal autistic child who also was identified as ESL when they entered and keeps that. So I do feel like it'll give us a chance to really have some instructional decisions and discussions that we haven't been able to before.
And I think one of the challenges always has been is the student having trouble with the testing and with the academics because they are a special needs student, or is there a language issue, or can it be both? So anything we can do to improve that, and if this does improve that, then that would be a very good thing.